My name is Elizabeth from Elizabeth Magical Garden. Here is where I empower women to reclaim their authentic power, embrace their inner wisdom, and transform life's most challenges. Transitions into profound opportunities for spiritual growth and self-discovery. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload a video. Subscribe to the newsletter at Elizabeth Magical Garden, as well as check out my podcast at Elizabeth Magical Garden, which goes live every single Thursday. Hey guys, welcome back to the live. Hi, my name is Elizabeth from Elizabeth Magical Garden, a magical garden reaching for the stars. Guys, you know we have to start with giving God the praise. Yes, glory to be to God. Happy Tuesday. I pray that everybody is well, and I pray that everybody is in great spirits. If you are in the northern hemisphere, right now it's a beautiful sunny day. It's a gorgeous fun sunny day, and there's a lot of things to give thanks for. Let's take a minute to give glory to God and giving thanks for being here, giving thanks for a new day, giving thanks for hopes and dreams and so much more. So let's just do that for a little bit before we dive in. Yes. Get your beverages. If you are just coming from lunch, put me down a little bit so, everybody won't hear. Or maybe they want to hear it. We don't know, but we don't want to be disruptive. We want to take the time to get glory. We want to take the time to breathe and inhale and give thanks for all the things that we are receiving today, right? Guys, today is a heartfelt topic that was put upon my heart because this particular topic today is a topic that is near and dear to me. But before we start, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe and hit that bell so you'll be notified every time I upload a video or go live. But before we start, I want to discuss a couple of cool things if you live in New York City that you can partake in for this spring weather. So the first one would be for kids. The Treehouse Children Museum hosting a decorate and plan activity, allowing kids to learn how to plant, grow, decorate pots, and engage in hands-on STEAM learning. Right? So I'm always appreciative when there's activities for children, especially hands-on activities, because, get the kids out the house, get them away from the screens for a bit. It's truly important. At least I believe, right? Engagement with other children and getting to know, because there's always so many different nationalities that go to these type of events. So I thought that would be cute to include. Next up, and this is for my ladies, the New York Botanical Garden hosting Meet the Orchid experts. So there's experts that's going to be at the Botanical Garden where they'll be explaining the orchids and sensory stations, providing an in-depth expert-led experience of the orchid show. So there's going to be a show about orchids at the Botanical Gardens. Something that I definitely am looking forward to doing. There is an entry fee, and there is also, if you want to save a little money, I believe you could pay for, there's a one-time fee. I believe that you pay and it will give you VIP access moving forward. So that's something fun to do, especially for those who may not have a backyard like myself, still sniffling. And you can learn about orchids. There's going to be a show, and there's so much more. I love plants. I have an orchid. I had this orchid for about, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years, guys. Fun fact, orchids they can live up to 200 years. Okay. So that's that. And every year it gives me a bloom. This year it gave me a full bloom, which I'm so grateful for. Last year, I feel like it was like she was struggling a bit. And I feel like the reason why she was struggling is because I don't think I was feeding her the way I needed to feed her. Like, there's orchid food, and I usually just spray and put three cubes of water. This is not a plant that you want to put too much water in, because if you do, it will it just wouldn't be good. So be sure to not do that. And last but not least, in terms of the planet, the New York City Parks Department making sure I got my notes right. The New York City Parks Department Central Park Conservatory Maintenance Unit is, if I have this right, because I did screenshot this off my phone. It's an urban ecosystem that provide essential green space admits in the city. So it's a particular area, I believe, that you can visit, if I'm not mistaken, at Central Park. The whole park is beautiful, so just see the whole park. But there are different events that you can see how they maintain different parts of the park. I know I love to read about different situations in parks. I love to dive in a park, especially in the parks around my facility, see when they were cultivated, what year they came about. One of the parks that is near me, there's a whole bunch of trees. And what I've learned when I was reading about the parks, when I was reading about this particular park, I learned that because there were unfortunate accidents, that there a whole strip of the trees that is going straight down the parks were dedicated to the souls that were affected due to unforeseen accidents. So it's always good to do your research about your parks, your community as well, because you don't realize how much goes into keeping a community, regardless of where you come from. You get to see how it was cultivated. You get to hear about the history, and I think that when we take the time to do things like that, it allows us to have more of a connection with not only ourselves, but the people around us, and of course our community and the planet. So that was something fun that I wanted to include today. Okay, so let's get into it. Where am I? Hold on, guys. Here we go. Okay. This cold weather, how are you guys doing in this cold weather? I got the sniffles, it seems like. So bear with me if there is a sniffle diffle happening. Okay. So did you know in the US, teen pregnancy birth rates started to rise in 1986 after hitting a low point. Around that time, the teen birth rate increased from 19 1886 to 1991, when it peaked again in the US. Teen pregnancy birth rates started to rise in 1986 after hitting a low point around that time. The teen birth rate increased from, 1986 to 1991 when it peaked again. And where do I fall in this sector? My son was born 91, so I was just at the tail end when it peaked again, because it peaked 1986 to 1991. And one of the reasons why it was put on my heart, because when I was thinking about what topic I wanted to discuss with you guys, it was so loud and it just came up as teen pregnancy. And I was like, teen pregnancy? I haven't been in this mindset for so many years, but I thought I would be remiss to not dedicate some time to this topic. Number one, I was a teen mother. I disclosed before that I was pregnant if I didn't, I believe I did. I was pregnant at 17 and I gave birth to my son at literally 2 weeks after turning 18. I gave birth to my son, and it was a very of course, no short to say, it was a life-changing experience, something that has never touched me in that way ever in my life. It completely changed me. I went in as a child and I came out as a mother, an adult, right? Without consciously understanding what really took place in my life. But I'll go into that later on. One of the reasons why I believe it was put on my heart, number one, it's a very sensitive topic. And with the climate that we're in, things are totally different. You know, a lot of people are still or have had children, and there's a lot of young people that have children. And, you know, when I gave birth to my son, we didn't have social media. We didn't even have the internet. Okay. There was a lot of things. I mean, the internet, I remember getting my first, that's when AOL came out. I remember getting my first computer when my son, I believe he was in, I want to say he was in his probably in the second grade. Probably in the second grade, excuse me, guys. It is what it is, okay? Bear with me. So it was a different experience for me, and my heart goes out to any young person in this climate for a melody of reasons that have children. And I hope this segment helps you in the least. And if you know somebody that this segment would help, please share this video with them. So one of the things that I had to have, number one on the list, is stigma and judgment from peers, from adults, and even health care providers. Okay. This is a real thing. You know, I remember, the prejudice, the stigma of alone was of its own, right? Here it is that you are a child having a child. That's how they used to say it. It's like you're a kid having a kid. And honestly, there's really no way to pussyfoot around it. It is true. I had no clue what I was getting myself into, okay? But even with that, I knew enough to know that I was going to be okay. And the reason for that is, number one, God. And number two, I was blessed to have a strong mom. My mom was my rock. My mom was my foundation. My mom, after God, was my everything. And in those days, in that era, you threw your kids out. And unfortunately, I had friends that also found themselves in a child way, and they were put out of their homes, had to move in with the boyfriend's family, and that in its own was an abusive situation, because it's like they're doing you a favor, and some of those people found themselves in really demeaning ways. So all glory to God, that was not my situation. My mom, she buckled up. She was young herself. I believe she was like only like what she wasn't even 40 when I became pregnant. She turned 40. Matt, it's so funny. My son is was born a day before her birthday. So there's that. And shout out to my mom, because she didn't throw me out. She kept me. Matter of fact, we upgraded, and we got a bigger space. We got a bigger space because we were we had to leave our current space, and I believe it was because of the shame of having me pregnant with a stomach. We was living in a 2-family bedroom. No, it was more than 2 bedrooms, but we were living in a private house. And that lady, I never liked her. I never liked that lady, not because of anything about with, the pregnancy, because that came along after. I just never liked her. She was a mean son of a gun. She was a hater. And I just didn't like her energy. She was one of those people that went to church, but, wasn't church bound. And, but you know what? Give grace to her. As a child, I just didn't like her energy. I just always felt like she was very judgy and just not a nice person. But we never know what's going on in other people's lives that make them the way they are. So that was my recollection of her when I was younger. But she was not a nice lady, okay? With that being said, we upgraded anyway, and we went and got, I remember we got more space and a bigger space. And this was all on the back of my mom, you know what I mean? Because I didn't have no job. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a pot or a window to throw it out. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that my mom kept me and my son and made sure that we were in good way. I will never forget that. Because that wasn't a guarantee. And if you are in that situation and you are still at home and you feel judged and you feel scared and you're pregnant and you may be the first person in your family, because I know I was the first in my immediate family to be in that way, because my family is affluent, going to college, going to school and everything. And here it is me. I turn around and I find myself pregnant. Okay. Well, not found myself. I'm pregnant, right? I was pregnant. And that was a lot to put on my mom, because my mother was already a single parent at the time. So we moved and we upgraded, and there was so much there was so much shame and judgment. We received judgment from close people that I grew up seeing. People stopped speaking to my mom because of me being in the family way. And my mother stood firm, and she stood by my side, and I always had a level of gratitude towards her, because I knew the sacrifices that she was making. I knew the things that it was just hard. It was just hard for her. It was definitely hard for me. I remember when I came home from the hospital at that time, I don't know if it's still like that. I only stayed in the hospital for like 2 days. And here it is, I came with this baby, and my mother took her 2-week vacation to give me a crash course on how to take care of a newborn. And, you know, between mother's instinct and my mother taking that time to teach me, I learned the basics. And the reason why I'm going in depth in that is because a lot of times, you know, a young person will still be at home. Maybe it's not your mom, maybe it's your aunt, maybe it's your uncle, whatever the situation. And all you can feel is like anger and fear and disappointment and even feel depressed. But understand, this too shall pass. You won't always be in this position. And as far as the judgment goes, that's something that I find is inevitable, especially when a person is in a community that's supposed to be like church, religious, you know, and so forth. But one of the things that I encountered, especially in healthcare. I remember taking my son in for his checkup. When he was he was circumcised, right? And TMI, right? So I went to go take him to, you know, just to make sure everything was okay. Thank God everything was okay. Let's fly, okay. And there was not even like a screen. It was like a white sheet separating me and the nurses that was there, right? A couple of nurses that was there, and I can hear them bartering about my age. Like, how old do you think she is? How you know, like trying to find out how old I was. And I of course I look really, really young, but my baby was clean. My baby was fed. My baby was fly, okay, because he always was cute. You know, I was blessed to be able to do, you know, like, shout out to my family. Like I really had for the way I came in, I was blessed to have the support, you know, from my family and also my son's father's family. You know what I mean? It wasn't a, you know, wham bam, thank you, ma'am, you know, and no shade with that, because it could have easily been. It just so happened that I was blessed to be with somebody that actually like wanted, like stood the fire with me, right? So crazy days, crazy times. And I heard the nurse going in about like, how old do you think she is? And I remember coming in, it was my turn. I came in, you know, for the checkup, and the first thing they asked me was like, how old are you? And see, your girl, I was different. Okay. I was a totally different person. I was a snapper. I was I was very fiery. Okay. I'm still a little, but I was a different entity at that time. And I was always witty. And when they asked me, I was like, oh, do you want me to sign something? Is there something that you want me to sign? And she was like, well, how old are you? I was like, is this anything pertaining to my son? And let me tell you something. They wasn't ready. They wasn't ready for my response. And guess what? They kindly walked away. Yeah, I thought so. Because what you're not going to sit here and do is get all up in my business when you know I'm sitting there. You know, it was really crazy, especially in the 90s. It was really crazy back when, you know, it's way different now. You young girls, you don't realize how blessed you are, and, you know, the way that you are able to vocalize yourselves. And even with that being said, I'm sure a lot of young girls, especially when you are already feeling beat down from life because of your current situation, you may not have the strength to combat these type of things, you know what I mean? Because of the lack of support at home. Second is interpretations from people, your peers, how people will perceive you. It's so subtle, and even when with people that are close to you, a lot of times they're afraid for you. It's fear. It's a lot of fear based, because when you see somebody in that way, when you see a young child with a baby, it does open a lot of questions of, where was the parents? Why is this child wasn't being watched, and so forth. So many different reasons why we know a person can find themselves in that way, right? And it's not an easy thing. And then the interruption to school, right? Absence, switching programs, dropping out, the dropping out risk. A lot of teenagers, when they find themselves pregnant, the first thing that tends to happen is they don't finish with their peers. I was one of them. I remember finishing, getting my high school diploma. I end up going to, at that time, I don't even know if they have that anymore. I end up finishing, I had to go to a alternative high school. That's what they used to call it. I don't know if they have that still now with all the budget cuts, but it was an alternative high school. And at that time, they had a daycare center. Yes, honey, a daycare center. So you could bring your child, you drop your kid off, and then you went to your classes, like just as regular. It was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. It was a whole system where you were able to bring your baby to school. They had, and it wasn't like a rinky dink type of situation where you just like left your baby. It was fully stocked. They had, the staff was beautiful. I remember my staff helped me potty train my son. The support that I was able to have is top tier. I have to say, it was top tier. And I feel like that era where I gave birth, I fell in this weird void of like, with the working class women that were going back to work at that time. So a lot of the amenities that I, outside of, once I graduated from high school, a lot of the amenities that I was able to get a hold of was in that sectors. And I was always the youngest. I was always the youngest one in the group, because for obvious reasons. And I believe in progression. Do not let your present, what I would say to any young mother out here that is currently in this present situation, do not let your current situation determine your future. You can still progress. There are so many things, so many resources that are out here that will allow you to progress and to continue your education and to grow, because you want to be the best version of yourself. You want to be able to come into your higher self in order to maintain a healthy progression in your life, which will allow you to be the best parent that you can be in your child's life, right? Because I know for myself, I came up with this version of never wanting my son to feel like he was a product of teenage pregnancy. I don't know where I got this from. I believe it was because of so much of the stigma and all the prejudice that I encountered over the course of the time when I was pregnant with him, that I made up my mind. I said, regardless of what's going on with me, I do not want that to fall on him. I want him to have a as close to normal life as he possibly can. And I want to say, not going, praise God that I was able to do that. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but I was able to see that way. And of course, I had a great foundation. Number 3, childcare. As I just mentioned, childcare challenges, finding it being able to afford it, reliable coverage. Again, there were different things I didn't have. Listen, okay, I don't want to sound like I was just like this rich girl just paying for everything. I at one time was on public assistance. I had help. There was a lot of different resources that I was able to get my hands on that allowed me to progress. And again, I fell in that season in my life. I fell in because I wasn't on there long. I wasn't on public assistance long because I started working like really early on in my son's life. And I believe that when you have, and I knew that I was going to live a particular type of life with my son. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but I just knew. I knew that present time in my life was not it. I did have postpartum depression, if I have to be honest. And I didn't realize I had it until I got out of it. If that makes if that makes any sense. I was in a haze. Okay, you got to remember, I was only I just turned 18, and it was time to give birth. Okay, so I left the building, so to speak. My hormones is going. I'm turning into. I literally became a woman while I was pregnant. Okay. So all these things were happening. I'm, experiencing all these different things, all these different emotions while I'm growing this child within me. So it's safe to say that it will take a toll on my physical, my mental, everything. And even with that, I was still able to, I was resilient. I was a young girl. I was strong, but I believe the reason why I was able to, after God, be as resilient as I was is because of the foundation I had. And parents, if you do find your child in that way, understand that how you treat her, how you treat your children when they're in this capacity will definitely determine how far in their progression. The best thing that you could do for a child in that way is support them. Do not not enable them, but support them. Because trust and believe, my mother was not the one where you was gonna like drop your child off and go play and go hang out and go to the clubs and do all the things. No. You was gonna sit here. He was gonna sit here, and you was gonna take care of this baby. Oh, you went and had this baby. You're gonna take care of this baby, and that was the best thing that she could have did for me. Because I also had friends where they would like they was bringing back more. Okay. And it's because of the freedom, the first time, your parents is like, okay, but then you go back. That's something that I knew. First of all, let me just double back. I knew that wasn't something that I was going to do again. I knew it. I knew once when I gave birth, I knew that was something that I was not going to repeat again. And it wasn't because, of course, I love my son. It wasn't because of that. It was just the experience. I just knew that wasn't something that I wanted to revisit again. I just didn't want to revisit that for me and my body. That wasn't something that I wanted to do. It is what it is. So you just know some people, they pop them out like hotcakes. It wasn't for me, not so much, and I made up in my mind though, that I was going to do it well. See, there's a difference with knowing that you don't want to do something again and then, muffing it up. And there's a difference of saying, you know what, I'm here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm going to do it great, but I'm not going to do it again. Right. So don't let people make you feel like you got to sit here and have more babies if that's not what you choose to do in any age. Okay. Or none at all. As a woman, this is a beautiful gift to be able to bring life into the world. But I do believe that being being earnest to yourself, being honest in that way of saying to yourself, you know what, this is something that I do not want to revisit for me, or not at all, and standing firm in that, because people will make you, especially, I don't know why people make women feel as if you're not complete. I remember when I was I'm divorced, but I was married at the time, not to my son's father, but, and it was like, oh, are you gonna have a baby? No, I'm not. No. And don't get me wrong, I toyed back and forth with the thought, but it was just a toy. I because at the end of the day, I love my freedom. I love to get up and go. I like to do what I want to do, and that's not something that you can do when you have a potload of children. Maybe so, but you know what? I didn't see it for me. So there you go. Right. So there's challenges with childcare when you are a young mother, and this is something, and I believe that this segment is even good for those who are not teen parents, right? Because you young, young and in love, you're with your boo, he's whispering all these sweet nothings, and women get attached. I know we live in a baddie, like like, what's that, the rasta, the pasta, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm, all with the, I know a little something, but you know what I mean? And you got to be careful. You got to be careful, because it only takes one. It only takes one. As women, as young ladies, we have to be very careful on how we treat ourselves, what we allow in our lives, how we view ourselves, doing everything we can to not allow ourselves to be in situations that we're not ready to be in, because especially when you're young, you feel like you are, Captain America, Wonder Woman. I know I did. I know I did. I thought I was a cat's meow. Okay. And I found out very quickly, that one experience is a lifetime experience. But you know what I have to say? I never felt like my son was a mistake. I never did. I always believed that he was here for a reason. And honestly, in a lot of, if I'm being perfectly honest with you guys, I would say he saved my life after God, because the way I was going, highway to it was the highway. Okay, I was full throttle. Okay, full throttle. Okay, rock and roll all the way. And it wasn't until this fly that just made an appearance. I guess he wants to, he or she wants to be down. It wasn't until I became a mother did I buckle down, because like I said, it was highways to for me. Okay. It was, I wasn't hanging with the best crowd. I was a lot, but I was great. So, and the next one is money stress, money stress. Okay. Did I say money stress? Did I say money stress? Because you got the diapers, the formula, medical costs, transportation, housing, and so much more. This is a human being, right? So when you're young and this is why for most, you get on public assistance, because you're not able, and that's why the public assistance rate, and this is one, I could go into a whole plethora of situations, but and I'm not going to sit here and diss it, because do people still say diss or disrespect? I'm not going to disrespect, because I too, once upon a time, was on, because My mother was already doing everything that she could do, and I needed to support myself, and I needed to support my son at the time. And I'm so grateful that I was able to use those facilities to propel me to the next level. For me, I was very blessed not to have to rely on such things for a very long time. After I graduated, I was able to, start supporting myself. And it wasn't long after did I when did I move out of my mother's house, I believe. And I was early. Okay. I believe, I'm always messing with this mic, guys. Okay. I believe, because I feel like it's not, hold on. Let's see. Is it, because we want it high. Here we go. Okay. That's better. I moved out. My son was about 4 years old when I moved out into my first apartment, and that was young back then. Okay, that was really, really young, because 90, if not all, of the people I knew at the time was still living at home with or without a child. So I was always really ambitious. I was a very ambitious young lady. I was always ambitious even before I was pregnant. I always was a type of person to make a dollar out of 15 cents. I remember when I was in junior high school, I would braid people hair on my on like in the lunch hour. So outside, we would, I would braid people hair and, make my little pocket money, buy my little Chinese food after school. This always, like, hair was something that got me. So like doing hair was something that was a hustle for me. It was an art. It was a form. It was something that I did naturally. It was something that I was able to do at a very early age. And it wasn't until years later that I get my my cosmetology license. Okay. But I was always crafting. I was always doing, when styles would come out, I would always I would say I'm a tactile visual learner, if I had to say. And I would just practice and do it. Or, I had girlfriends that was, you see the fly? I had girlfriends that were cool enough to let me do their hair. And of course, when people didn't have no money to go to no the beauty parlor, they would come to me. And it was just like something that I did. I did my family's hair. It was something that I always was doing. And use your gifts. Money is something that can be created. Money is energy. Money is, what you give, you will generally receive, right? And this goes with anything, how you treat people, be kind to others. Just because you are in a way, don't use that as an excuse to be mean to others, to be nasty to others. Understand that you are a mother now, right? It's very important to conduct yourself in a manner, I'm also going to add on your appearance. Your appearance does matter, guys, especially when you are a young mother. You don't want to, now do what you want. Do what you want, right? Do what you want. But what I will say is that the role of mother is very important, and what you do on, oh, wait, hold on. Oh, this is ginger. This is ginger and some lime. The ginger tea packet. It's a little different. It's yellow, but whatever. It's good. No sugar. I didn't even put honey this time. Your appearance does matter, okay? If no one told you, sweetheart, your appearance does matter. There is a difference. What you do on your time is your time. This is what I believe. What you do on your time is your time. What you do on your child's time is your child's time, because when you set forth to be a mother, you are now second if no one told you. Okay. I remember the first time it was a holiday. I believe it was Christmas. Child, every gift that came in was for my son. It was either Pampers, outfit, something. That was the first year. It was real. Like it was, you got nothing. You got nothing. If you got something, you were blessed. I remember my mother was really gracious enough to, I remember like, it was like, I went back. I went back to school, and that September, and my mother gave me money to buy some new sneakers. It's like a couple of things that I needed, and I thought that was really cool, because she could have been like, "Oh, wear what you have." She made sure I was good. She made sure that my morale stayed, up. She allowed me to get a couple of things that would refresh me, and because the baby was fine, and even when I came home, it looked like I had a baby shower, which I did not. I wasn't even thinking about a baby shower. I didn't have any baby shower. Now they get baby showers and all this type of stuff. Child, it was none of that happening. At least for me, I didn't receive no baby shower. But I guess the baby shower happened when I was in the hospital, because when I came home, I never forget. I was so like, I want to say lost. I was so like out of it, guys, that when I did come home, I noticed everything, the crib, everything was set up beautifully. Everything smelled beautifully. My mother even was gracious enough to buy me a new mattress. She didn't let me come and sleep on the same mattress that my stomach done messed up. I had a twin size bed. She bought me a new mattress for my bed. And, I believe in giving back. And this segment is not only for you guys, but it's also for me, because the Elizabeth that was 17, 18 years and became a mother, I just never have seen myself at this state. And I was so down. I was so depressed. I felt like, I never forget, 90210 was out. Am I saying? If you know the theme song, 90210 was out, guys. And I never forget, like, my son was in a bassinet. It was spring, summer, like summertime, because he's born in June. So it was about almost like that it was warm. It was sunny. And I never forget that show came on. And all the high school students giving high five, getting in and out of the car, running through the beach. And I never forget, that was the day I said goodbye. I looked down at my son, and I remember saying, well, that's the end of that. And I remember just picking him up. No, he was sleeping. He was like sleeping, on his stomach. And I was like, that's the end of that. And that day, in my mind, I said, that's no longer my life. And I just move forward. And that's what I would suggest to you guys. And this is why I mentioned appearance, because how you conduct yourself is people are going to treat you a certain type of way. Yes, you're still young. Yes, you're still naive, right? Because you're learning, and it's okay. But give yourself the leverage of appearing, and it shouldn't be like that, but it is because you are going to have to go to open school night. You're going to have to meet with the teachers. You're going to have to speak to the doctors. And I'm gonna tell you right now, and I hold your hand when I say it, they're all watching you. They are watching every single move that you make. They are watching and waiting for your fall so they can do what they have to do. And we already know, right? So don't give anybody anything to talk about, right? Yeah, we could live in a society and say, well, I don't care. I'm doing me and my child is okay. And no, It's not okay because your child is young, and your mission as a parent is to make sure that you secure the survival of your child. It doesn't matter if you're still a child. You are now an adult, right? And you are a sovereign person. You have what it takes to be the most beautiful, blessed mother that this beautiful child that is either growing inside of you or is has just been birthed, or a toddler. You have the ability to be the best mommy that you could ever be, because God has given us this ability. I believe that we all have it, right? Regardless. This is why, regardless if you have a child or not, we are just naturally caretakers. But we do live in a society that is very judgy. So how you appear says a lot about you. People, listen, I didn't make up the rules. People view from what they see, right? I remember when and let me tell you how serious I am about this about this particular one, right? In terms of like money and how you appear. Because I remember when my son used to go to, what was it? I had to appear. For open. His father and I would go to open school night. Child, let me tell you what I would do. Because it doesn't take much. Let me just put you on. I used to love, I used to like, okay, so what I would do is I would always, first of all, you should always have a trench coat. Trench is your best friend. A nice trench. Invest in a nice trench. I still have mine. I bought it years ago from the Gap. A nice they have beautiful ones in Uniqlo. I remember they had a nice one last year. I don't know about this year because they're always changing up their styles. Banana Republic. Just invest, save your little money and invest. You could thank me later. Invest in a beautiful trench coat. It is an investment, because this particular item is going to camouflage all the other things. You could have your hoochie mama outfit underneath, but have you a nice trench coat and you tie that and have a nice little bag and a beautiful, I would say also have a nice scarf, a nice silk scarf. You know, the type of ones that I would say that's another investment, but you know what? You could go to you can go to the dollar store. You go to the beauty parlor store. You know those scarves, those pretty scarves that you put over your head to at night. Well, you get a nice one that will go with everything that you could put around your neck, right? And you tuck that in and you just drape it and you have your little bag. And let me tell you, you're the bee's knees, and you come in there and you support your child. Right? You listen to what the teacher say, you know what I mean? And be present in the moment and be cute, face clean. You don't have to put on a lot of makeup. If you want to put on makeup, go ahead, do you, but tone it down, right? Because they're watching. They're smiling in your face while they're watching and taking notes. And I used to do this all the time. I would put on a trench coat, put my little scarf on, have my little bag, and just be just as okay, and it's not about, well, it is actually, no, it is acting, right? Because you're not old. You're young. You might be the youngest one in the room, but you want to be respected. And but one of the main ways people tend to respect you is how you carry yourself, right? And you, at least this is what I found, I was more dressed up than the people that were older than me. And over the course of time, I seen the difference in how, they treated my son. Now, I'm not taking away his work, because he was he was a really good student. He was a very, he did really good in school. So that helped, right? But like the way you conduct yourself, the way you carry yourself is going to take you very far. And it also builds your sense of person. It builds your character. It helps you in your morale, right? Because you're teaching yourself as well as you're teaching your son, as long as you learn, as well as as you are also growing with your child, with whether it's your son, your daughter, your kids. You're teaching yourself the difference in different point of views and how you carry yourself. Because again, this is not the end all be all. God has something great for you. Okay. Just because you had your child at a tender age doesn't mean that life is going to forget you. Absolutely not. So you might as well practice now. And as far as money, I would say, and this is something that was really hard for me to do, I would say save your money. It was very, very hard. And the reason why I know, and it usually is really hard for anybody that didn't have access to money in a consistent way. Because by the time you get money, you already have so many things that you had your eye on. You already had so many different scenarios of what you would do if you were able to have a certain amount of money. You are desperately in a situation where money is scarce, and your relationship with money becomes a level of comfort because it's scarce, right? So by the time, and then you're young, you see so many people doing the things, having fun, getting their nails done, getting their hair done, doing the things and all this other stuff. And so by the time you do get a little bit of money, you too want to feel like you want to feel beautiful. You want to feel good. You want to treat yourself to the things that you know that you deserve, and you do deserve those things. And I'm not going to say for you not to get these things. I know a lot of people preach, live below your means. Live below your means. Do not buy frivolous things so you can obtain financial wealth. And you know what? That is an avenue that definitely will see you in a good way. But when it comes to your mental health is first. Okay. So there's no dollar sign. There's no dollar sign when it comes to your mental health. Okay. I'm going to be the first one to tell you that. So girl, if you got $100 and you saving 10 every month, you start with 5, you start with 10. Who said this? And I have so much respect for her. What is that? Melody Hobson? Am I saying her name right? Please, God. Melody Hobson, I believe. She said that, I love her. She's married to the one who created Star Wars. Okay, so you could look it up. But I remember, she's a Black woman. I remember she said that, because she taught me a lot when it came about money, and because we all want to start large, right? We want to start big, and it's about small bites. So I remember I'm paraphrasing, basically to start small. So what's the scenario? Like if you're going to save $5, say $5 for 3 months. Start small. And she always wears a turtle. She always wears like a turtle on her lapel, because turtles, they move slow, right? So, and this is a woman that you wouldn't go wrong from listening or learning the things that she has to say, right? So anyway, you save $5 for 3 months, and then after the 3 months you add another $5. So now that's $10 for 3 months. And then when that 3 months pass, you add another $5 and that's $15. And you just keep every 3 months, you add $5, right? Over the course of time, doing this, it's inevitable that you are going to find yourself in a different financial way, because I don't believe in suffering. God said that we should be fruitful. He created us to live a life of abundance. And it is very hard for you to feel abundant when you are depressed, feeling you're loathing on yourself because you're not able to buy anything, you're not able to do anything. And girl, we all know that we got to have our hair done. We gotta have our hair done. A woman in her hair. Okay. I know for me, whether it's mine or not, I have to make sure that my hair is done. The way a woman carries herself is, it does. I don't care what nobody say. It does, play a major factor with how she views herself. And yes, we can say society has a lot to do that. You say what you want to say. It is what it is. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I made the rules. So girl, save your money, but still treat yourself, because when you are in a mental state that is healthy, you will be able to be a better parent to your child. It's just a known fact, right? So do what you can and give yourself a high five, right? It's okay. And for some people, it may not be a physical thing. It may be being able to afford a gym membership, right? Go to the gym, move your body, stay active, right? Because when you get those endorphins going, it helps you again to clear out those thoughts of, oh, I'm young, I had a baby early, I don't have no money, this, that, and the third. You get to clear those that way of thinking. And because of the endorphins that's being released, you get to see yourself and feel more positive. You get to have a better outlook of life, which will enable you to have a better experience when you are with your child. Because I know for me, it was a lot of depression. It was a lot of worry. It was a lot of money worrying. It was so many things. And when I look back, I'm grateful that along the way, still in a tender age of my son's life, especially, you know what, by the time he became a toddler, things was much better. That first year, it was that first year. And I think that's for anybody, but regardless of what age you have a child, but even more so when you are at such a tender age. The next one is limited job opportunities, right? Limited job opportunities because of age, schedule, and lack of experience. There's that, right? It's really hard to, it's hard for an adult to find a job, these days, nevertheless a young person. So what I would say about this, because this is a very dangerous thing when it comes to the limitations of obtaining an occupation when you are in such a tender age with a child. And one of the reasons why this can be dangerous is because, it can lead to you making decisions that in the long run would not be beneficial to you, your spirit, and of course your child. Right? So what do we do? There are so many things that can be done, especially now that we are in a digital age. You could start, child, you could start your own business, right? You know, think about the things that you can do naturally. I believe that God gives us all gifts. And I really believe that God gives us a bonus gift when we have a child, because he knows what we have to take care of this baby, right? So maybe you know how to do hair. Okay. You know, there's money in that. Babysitting. You can off if you're up to taking care of other people's children as well. You can babysit. You can maybe ask your church for, you know, help in terms of like maybe they know somebody that needs help in a particular area. But digitally you can do you can open up an Amazon store, right? And you can do affiliate marketing. You can start a YouTube channel and promote your things. You can write a book and discuss your, help somebody in or just like document your experience thus far as a teenager and what you believe that somebody else could benefit from. You can pick a solution that you believe that the market has yet to solve, and you can create something around that. There is a melody of things that is at your fingertips that was not available when I was your age. Okay. It just wasn't. We didn't have but we didn't have none of this stuff. Okay. And this is why I just wanted to remind you guys, because you girls are smart, right? You girls are so smart. Your girls are so intelligent. I see you guys out there. But I just feel like, especially if you don't have somebody pouring into you, because when you have a baby, it really does throw you off your A game. Especially when you're so young like that and you see your peers and they're living their lives and they're doing their thing, it can really put you in a space of depression, right? And I just want this particular, segment to remind you that you have a purpose in this life. You matter, right? And again, if this will help anyone that you know that is young, that find themselves in a mother's way, please send this video to them. Because if I had somebody outside of my mom speaking to me like this, or just seeing somebody that actually went through what I'm going through right now, it would have did so much for me mentally, right? It would have gave me so much hope, and anybody that was, for the ladies that did have their kids in the 90s, I believe that it's our sovereign duty to pass on the torch and let others know that they will survive this, right? And give them like really good advice, because, a lot of people like to gatekeep. A lot of people don't even like to even say, they experienced anything. Nowadays everything is perfect, and I'm like, okay, girl, good with that. Okay, so another one is co-parenting. Co-parenting pressure. The co-parenting pressure. Unstable relationships. Custody, conflict, and little support. This right here is a make or break. Because if you are a teenager and you find yourself in a motherly way, you find yourself pregnant, girl, like, it's really, let's take a a moment to understand a young man. I know. We talking about the young girls and being pregnant. I get it, but we have to. It would be remiss of me for me not to acknowledge the young boys too. You know, number one, and I'm not making excuses, but boys mature. And this is a known fact. This is scientific. Girls are more mature than boys, right? We use both hemispheres of our brains at the same time, whereas men use one at a time. This is why when you speak to a man, he's like, you're all over the place. Because how you can think about the eggs, think about cleaning the house, and this so and so birthday, and we are like octopus. We can multitask in such a way that is it's nauseating for a man, right? That's when he'll be like, give me a list. Right. And usually a list consists of 1, 2, 3, 4. Give me the list of everything you want me to do, and then I'll take care of it. I know we all have heard that, right? There's a reason why he's not being disrespectful. It's just that he really needs the list. He really needs the list, because what he's going to do is go one by one and knock it out. Okay. He's not going to sit here and have all these things, all these burners going at the same time, getting things done. He's just not going to be doing it like that. So add that times 10 to a young man, right? So we're hoping that this young man stands up and do what he has to do for this child. But we all know that a lot of times that's not the factor. You might find yourself, for the majority of your child being youthful, you might be a single parent, and that is a reality. You might find yourself holding majority, if not all, of the responsibility. And that is also a harsh reality. Right? And this doesn't say that all young men is going to drop the ball, because that has not been my experience. Thank God. But I also have been with friends as I was growing up, and I seen that that was their reality. Some of these young men never came back around, and it was hard to watch. It was hard to see. And I was it just made me have so much more gratitude for what I did have. It was hard for me to even, at times, it made it really hard for me to even feel bad for myself, because I'm like, just like when I was about to buckle down and go, oh my God, where's me? And I look to the right of me, and I'm like, damn, I'm glad that's not my situation. Right? But notice, if you do find yourself in the way of dealing with most of the responsibility, if not all the responsibility, I remember this time when my son had to go to the doctor, and I was really big on if I gotta go, you gotta go. Everything had to be even Steven. I was young, and it was, at the time, his dad lived on the other side of town, and he was unable to come to an appointment. And I was all the rage. I was so upset. And I remember speaking to my mom, and and I remember she said to me, and I still, when you have those moments of clarity, I could still remember where I was sitting in my first apartment when she said this to me. She said, let me ask you a question. What would you do if he wasn't there? And I was like, damn. She said, what would you do? What would you do if he was not there? What would you do? And I was like, I would take care of it. And it was like dead silence. Okay. And it was nothing after that was nothing to discuss. It was nothing to discuss because, I don't know if you are familiar with this phrase. It says, "It's mother's baby, father's maybe." It's not a nice one, but it's the fact. It's a fact. You're going to do it anyway, right? Whether they stay or not, you're going to take care of your child anyway, right? It wasn't two people that were pregnant. That baby was within you. You had that baby. You grew that baby inside of you. That is your responsibility. Yeah, of course it's a dad's responsibility, but mothers are, this is why it tends to be like, it's not cool, but like, Mother's Day is like all the craze, and then fathers is like, and not because fathers are very important, right? We need them. But unfortunately, the stats is kind of not giving, you know what I mean? So rather than look at it like, oh, I'm holding on most of the responsibility, I was the only one that had this baby. Look at it as a matter of, God has chose me to take care of this child, and that's what I'm going to do. This is when you have to woman up, which leads into mental health struggles, anxiety, depression, postpartum depression, and shame. So let me just break this down. Okay. So I'm going to go so I'm just going to go in order. So let's talk about anxiety. Now, this anxiety is really, this is something that I particularly believe that I always had, but didn't know that I had it. It's something I was always dealing with it, but I didn't realize that I was dealing with it. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I believe, and this is just for me, I believe one of the reasons why I didn't know I was dealing with it, because I didn't have time to deal with it. Okay. I didn't have time for anxiety. I didn't have time to be having any anxiety. I had to take care of this child. But just understand that as how you deal with your anger, how you deal with people, how you deal with yourself, this can show up in that way, right? So I would say do breath work, take deep breaths when you feel anxious, when you feel overwhelmed, go in the bathroom, turn on the water. If the baby's crying and he's safe, he or she is safe, go in that bathroom, close that door and turn off that water to drown out that cry. And you sit there and you breathe deeply, exhale, inhale, breathe deeply, put some cold water on your face, sit there for a moment, and that too shall pass, right? And if you need to speak to somebody that you trust. Depression is something that I feel like it's kind of, unfortunately, will probably be part of the game, regardless of what, all of these things, because you're so young. You have no, you don't have any real understanding, regardless if you was a person that helped your mom or not with her children. Like, it's different from helping somebody else to having your own child, right? And there's a lot of apprehension that comes with that. Understand that these things that you feel is normal. Give yourself grace. I would say join a group, maybe a young mothers group, or maybe even start your own group. You could start online, if you have Facebook or Instagram, you could start it. Again, you guys have the web, and there's so many things at your fingertips that you can be a part of, of different communities that is also dealing with the things that you may or may not be dealing with at this present point in time. And postpartum depression is something that I disclosed. I didn't at the time. Let me tell you, I'm like in a dinosaur age. Like, I didn't even know what that, I mean, I knew what it was, but I didn't even know I had it until I was out of it. And I mean that because I remember looking at my child. He was like 6 months. And at the time, and I remember saying, oh my God, I remember telling my mother, I was like, oh my God, he's so cute. And my mother looked at me like, of course he is. And I was like, all right. Because I felt like that was the first time I was actually really looking into his face. I was doing the things. I was going through the acts. I was cleaning. Of course, I was doing all of those things to the T, but I didn't feel anything. I was numb. I was legit for 6 months numb. I felt nothing. Right. And, your hormones are going crazy. You are also becoming a woman yourself, right? So you are doing two things at the same time. You became a mother and you became an adult. Your body has changed immensely, and that's going to wreak havoc on not only your nervous system, but on how you feel, your physicality. So be kind to yourself, give grace to yourself if you are experiencing any of these things. And please be sure to speak to somebody you trust so you could get some advice, because your mental health is extremely important because you want to be the best mommy that you could be, right? Right. Okay. And then shame. I want to give the finger to the shame. Okay. But we're going to keep it PG. We're going to keep it PG. People love to shame, right? People love to put people down. People love to attack people when they are at their lowest, as if they are living a perfect, God-fearing life. Listen, we all fall short. Okay? We all fall short. There is no one, I repeat, there is absolutely no one that has this all figured out. So do not worry about your pretty little head of that aunt, that cousin, that uncle, that family friend, a friend of the family member that is giving you the look like, boo, you're not Jesus. You're not God. You're not getting me in the gates of heaven. Get out my face. You use the bathroom just like me. Okay. So what you're not going to do is sit here and try to shame me. Okay. And I just look at it as a form of bullying. So do not take that, try your best to not allow yourself to take that. Honestly, girl, don't even care. Okay. They're losers. Okay. Anybody that's taking the time to shame you and not pour into you and help you and feed you goodwill and good cheer is not somebody that you should even care about their opinions. Okay, there, I said it. Okay, next is, so the health risk. Okay, higher chances of pregnancy complications, less prenatal care access. Now, this one, I was like, I could see it. Now, the high chance of pregnancy complications, it is depending on what age, because, when you're so young, your body may not be, just because you have your womanhood, you may not be fully ready to be in that way. So there can be some complications sometimes, but honestly, I feel like that could be with anybody, not just like a young person. So I left that in there, but I just was like, I teeter back and forth, right? Less prenatal care access. That's another one. I feel like there's a lot of health care that allows you, because people like, especially in this country, is really big on child health care, right? So having access, especially if you live in the United States, I don't see that being a present issue, unless you have some other reasons why you are not seeking help. A lot of people are hiding their pregnancies. And I would say that, girl, if you are hiding, it is your responsibility to take yourself to a doctor. You know, have to understand that now you are in charge, responsible for someone outside yourself. And as hard as it is, as scary as it is, as nerve-wracking as it is your responsibility to make sure you take care of yourself, okay? Because you want to give your baby a fighting chance. Nevertheless yourself, right? Because a healthy baby is a healthy mommy, and a healthy mommy is a healthy baby, right? That's what we're aiming for, right? So you want to be able to, give yourself a less headache, right? Because taking care of yourself will allow you to have a better chance at a great life with your child, and that's what you want, right? Right. So good for you. I'm proud of you. And social isolation, friends moving on with teen lives, loneliness, less community. This one again, I sat with this one and social isolation. Now, when I was a young mother, there was no internet. There was no there was none of those. There was none of that. But at that time, like I said, 90210, Saved by the Bell, these old shows that, glorified like teens and being a teen magazine, all these things. I felt like those things isolated, made it feel isolating because you no longer fit fit the things that they were talking about. It was like it just felt like although you were a teenager, but it's like, I'm a mother. And they're not talking about like, where's the sale on Pampers? You know what I mean? They're not talking about, waking up in the middle of the night because there's a poop explosion. Like there's none of that in a teen magazine. So you can feel isolated. But now, especially nowadays with these phones, you can start your own community. There's so many communities that you can be part of where you don't have to be isolated and be around like-minded people. Because FYI, you're not the only one to have a baby at a tender age. Just saying. Next is safety, housing inability, family conflict, unstable home. That can be a thing because you're so young, and more than likely you probably don't have the cash to get your own apartment yet. And with that, what I would say is safety first. I don't care who it is. If you don't feel safe, don't stay, right? And there are a lot of I would say go to your local church, find counseling that you can, that will help you seep through and get help where you can, potentially find yourself in a space where you can get certain amenities. Now, if you are at home and it is a safe space, but you just can't stand being there, that's more of a you issue because, you can't be wrong and strong. You're going to have to kind of take the looks. You're going to have to take the stresses of, kind of looking down upon and when there is a stressful moment, getting just getting iced out kind of and what I will say to that is usually not personal, especially if you live with your parents. It's hard on them too, because they already had the stress of taking care of you and maybe your siblings if you have brothers and sisters. And here it is, you literally bought another mouth to feed. And although your parents love you and you might be saying, I don't feel loved, this, then, and third, they treat me like this. And, I don't feel like I'm being supported in this type of way. Girl, you got a roof over your head. You have a roof over your head. You and your baby is safe. And until you are in a position to move out, you and your baby, you're gonna have to deal with what's in front of you. What I will say to you is to be the best that you can possibly be. Use this opportunity to finish school. Maybe even go into college. Use this opportunity to better yourself, because let me tell you something. When you do get out on your own, you're going to be on your own. I'm not saying that you're not going to have the support of your family, but it's different when you are on your own than when you are under the roof of somebody else. So I would say try not to focus on what you are not, what's not happening, and focus on the stability that you do have. That's what I would say to that, because that's important. Like I mentioned earlier, some people don't have that. Okay. A lot of people got kicked out and they have to make their own way. So if you are at home and you are in the safe comforts of your parents' house, show appreciation. Show appreciation, do things around the house, help out, show your parents that, what, you are grateful for what they're doing, and say it, tell them thank you, tell them that you love them, because they don't know what to say either. Everybody's looking at each other like, what do we do? Because that's not something that, FYI, that's not something that a parent signed up for. Right? So there's that teenage pregnancy judgment from the peers and stuff like that. That's just it just comes with the territory, and try not to give yourself, just try not to give yourself so many hard accolades. What I will say before I close this out is that, God is a sovereign God. And, I know that there are so many, and I'm not a religious person, and I'm going to keep saying that because I just find that a lot of religions are preaching certain things that isolates so many people that also would like to have a relationship with God, but feels like they can't because they messed up. You had a child out of wedlock. Oh, you're not married. You're shacking up. You're doing this and you're doing it. And I'm not saying that, everything has its place. I will say that everything has its place, but we can't make it the end all be all, and I believe that God is a forgiving God. God is a loving God, and God knew you before you was in your mother's womb. So beating up on yourself for not being able to follow the yellow brick road it's just not going to benefit you. It's not going to benefit your child, and it's not going to benefit your future. I would say use this time to know who God is. Use this time to speak life into your situation. Use this time to speak life into your child. Use this time in asking God to allow you the gift of discernment, knowing what's the next best move. This should be your focus, in my humble opinion, because this is what not only you need, this is what your child needs from you, right? Because people could say what things could be all day under the sun. It's all under everybody's perspective, right? Because no one has went and gone to the other side and came back. Like, you're telling me about all this other stuff, but did you experience it? And I'm not being blasphemous, but I just feel like the main objective, I believe, is that God loves us and he wants to have a relationship with us. And one of the main reasons I believe that faith can be built is having a relationship with God, because it's very hard to have a level of trust in someone, nevertheless God, if there is not a relationship that has been cultivated, right? And through that relationship enables you to have a level of faith. And the more you get to know God is the more you'll be able to understand that his word is key. What he said, his word is the same back then as it is today, and it will be tomorrow. His word is not changing, right? It's not changing because you had a baby. It's not changing because your child's father left you. It's not changing because you had a baby out of wedlock. Like, his word is born. You give him your heart and he will change it. You do not even have to do anything. You might be saying, well, you know what? I used to be a church girl and then I got pregnant and then now, I just feel like God turned his back on me. No, God didn't turn his back on you. You turned your back on him because you were made to believe that you messed up because you had a child, an innocent child. That child is not a curse. A child is innocent. And God sent that child to you, right? Because we hear over and over again how things happen in birth. So the fact that you have a healthy baby, the fact that you were able to birth a healthy child into existence, one would say is that you are chosen, right? Think about Mary. She literally was put in position. She was put in a position where, okay, boo, not only did she get pregnant from the Holy Spirit, right? Not only did God chose her to be the mother of Jesus Christ, she was already betrothed. She was already chosen to be, I believe, Joseph's wife. And she was pregnant. So now she had to go tell her man, boo, like, I know we supposed to be getting married. I got to paraphrase. I knew we were supposed to be getting married and everything, and I still want to marry you, but I just want to let you know real quick, I don't want to hold you. I'm pregnant. Yeah. And, I'm having this baby. I'm pregnant. I still love you, and I still want to marry you. I just got pregnant. I didn't sleep with anyone. It's just like an angel came and visited me and let me know that I was carrying, this baby. What? Can you imagine? And she was a virgin. Okay. She was a virgin. She literally was minding her own business. She was literally minding her own business in these streets and found herself in a mother's way. And she had to go and tell her man that she was about to marry, that, boo, we having a baby. Oh, and yeah, by the way, it's not yours. Oh. What? Can you imagine how frightening that might have? No. Can you imagine how frightening that is to a human being that find themselves in a way of giving birth to a child and never had the presence of a man in their life, but yet you having a baby, but yet you don't even know what it is to lay with a man, but you having a baby on top of that. And it was no Tylenol. It was no all this other stuff that we got over here. Girl, what? What? So your situation, fast forward. Your situation is safe to say nowhere near as stressful as that. Then she had to have her baby in a manger. What? Straws? Excuse me? So not only what? After traveling on a camel's back, miles and miles and miles and miles looking for, they didn't even have a home. But the whole way God provided. And God spoke to Joseph and told him, because he was about to be out. He was about to be like the rest of them. Pew! He was about to be out. He was about to leave. Saranara, not for me. Okay, another one bites the dust. What I'm not going to do is sit here and marry this woman talking about she pregnant and she don't know what it is to be with a man, but yet she talking about she still want to marry me. You better get the out of my face, right? But God is a sovereign, merciful God. He took care of that. He spoke to his boy Joseph. He let him know, like, listen, my boy, like, this is what we about to do. Yeah, you gonna marry her. You're gonna marry her because the Messiah is coming, and I need you to protect them. And he spoke to Joseph's heart. He spoke to him, and from that time on, Joseph stood by her side and married her. And if you are in a position where, you're not married, like immaculate conception, okay? let's not lie too much, you know what I mean? But if you are in that way and your significant other does not want to stand by your side, understand that God will provide. God will, I promise you, God will provide. Your task is to hold on. Your task is to be the best mother that you could possibly be to this child, knowing that God loves you and God would never forsake you. Because when Mary was told that she was pregnant and she was a virgin, okay, she was blessed. Her womb was blessed. A woman's womb is blessed when she is in that incubating mode, when she is growing a child within her body, when she makes a decision to be this child's mother. There's something that happens in a woman's body that I believe only God knows what it is. He's the one who puts it together. So give yourself grace. Do not use this as an excuse to fall out of grace because you are in a place in your mind where you feel isolated and you are afraid. Take care of yourself. Understanding that this is the most important mission that you could ever have in your life. So, I end this with saying congratulations to all my young mothers out there. Shout out to all the young teenage parents that found themselves in a way in the 90s, 91, 80, 89, 90, 91, especially 91, 91 mothers. Everybody that had a child in the 90s, 91, 90, 91. We made it. Oh my God, we made it. Child. We made it. We made it. Only us know. You may never get the credit that you deserve. You may never get the acknowledgement of the sacrifices that you have made. It's safe to say you're probably in your 50s, you're premenopausal now, but that's a whole other situation. But you made it. You made it, girl. You made it. You are here. You did your big one, like they say. You did your big one. You thugged it out. And now look at you. Now look at you. Guys, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell so you'll be notified every time I upload a video or go live. Be sure to leave in the comments. Let me know your takeaway from this topic. Let me know if you had a personal experience with this. Did you know anybody that is in this position right now as we speak? Be sure to pass this video on to someone that you believe that will be that this would benefit and be beneficial in their lives. We are here to love on each other. We are here to celebrate one another. Guys, be sure to check out my podcast at Elizabeth Magical Garden Podcast YouTube channel, because yes, she does have her own YouTube channel over there, and I go live at times on there as well on that platform. I also have a podcast that goes live every single Thursday, so be sure to check that out. All the links will be down below. You already know. Guys, stay blessed, stay in peace, and stay empowered. Peace.